everybody, good morning and a very cozy warm welcome to my little creative corner today. Welcome back, here we are again. It's amazing, beautiful sunny morning. I don't know if you can see how many layers I've got on today, but it is very cold out there. We've had snow, which is not a common occurrence these days, but it's actually snow that's stayed. We had about 3 inches, and of course the whole country ground to a halt, doesn't it, because we can't cope with a little bit of snow because we don't get it often enough. We don't get it for a long enough period of time. We don't have snow tyres and snow chains on our cars, because if you get it for 3 days and it goes, or a day and it melts, you know, what are you supposed to do? So anyway, it's been made life very interesting. I have to go out and make sure that the geese have got water that's not frozen and things like that, and just go out and enjoy it because the sun has been beautiful. Going to the shops is a little bit more tricky because I live in a little village, and initially, you know, the snow's fine. If you just go out in the snow, it's kind of okay, but as the week's gone on, the ice has got more sort of icy, and it comes and it goes, doesn't it? When it melts, and then I'm sure anybody who lives in the sticks like I do, you know, it melts and it refreezes and it crunches and it gets all ruckled up. So I actually went shopping yesterday. I was very brave, got in my car, and the worst bit actually is just getting out of our little lane, because it's kind of up a hill, slight hill, but it's more that there's a road goes along the top, and I have to make sure I drive out all in one go to get out, but also must be aware that if anybody's coming I'll have to reverse back down. So anyway, it's been fun and it's been beautiful, so I'm going to show you a little clip of what it's been looking like, because I'm so inspired. It really makes you focus, doesn't it, when the weather's like this, when the snow comes and everywhere looks very beautiful. So it's made life quite interesting, as I say, you know, looking at it, I think it's a bit like winter makes you really focus on life, doesn't it? Survival, it becomes about survival, and being sensible, you know, don't go out if it's really bad weather. I was going to go to yoga last night, but luckily it wasn't on. I kind of psyched myself up to think, well, I could go out in the dark, it'll be fine. The worst that happens is I kind of end up in a ditch or something. The roads are not bad, you just kind of drive off to the side, and the main roads are fine. Honestly, I went to my local town and there was no snow whatsoever. There was a bit of frost, and I feel like I'm coming in from the wilds. Yeah, it's just marvellous. But anyway, I went out yesterday with my camera and I did a bit of filming and I did a bit of photography, just because it's so rare to have this snow and how it shows up, you know, all the seed heads and just beautiful and quirky things, you know, piles of snow where you don't expect it. So that's just been great. And the other thing I was going to talk about was my little piece. I was so intrigued by all the comments I got last week. It was brilliant to hear what you've got going on in your head, what you see and what I see and what anybody else sees. It's so fascinating, isn't it? It's such a personal thing, what we see and how we see the world. And I think art is part of that. I always think art is like life, really. Because it's all about creativity and playing and not taking anything too seriously to me, and it's about expressing something, and as I say, it's all about seeing how we see the world, what we see, and that's why I love it when you leave me a comment to say what you think about the piece and what you would do, because I often come up with ideas that I hadn't thought of, and I think that's just brilliant. So I'm looking forward to getting on with that, and we'll do that in a minute. I can't believe how long we've been making it for. It seems like years, not months, but this is part of my ethos here. It's about slow, it's about restful, gentle making. It's not about rush, got to have an outcome, because the rest of the world is doing that. You know, the rest of the world is hurtling headlong into goodness knows what and speeding everything up. And for me, this is like the antidote here. When I come in here, it's just like this little world of fabric and threads, and nothing really matters, And when I first set up this YouTube channel, I was a little bit concerned about how was I going to produce enough to fill the time, etc. But I find the time gets filled quite quickly, and I realised if I just paste it at a slow pace and do it as I'm doing it, because literally I'm not coming in any more than I would, normally, just to do YouTube. I just come in and do what I'm doing, and I show you what I'm doing at the speed at which I'm doing it. And then I've got editing and stuff to do as well, and life and other things going on. We've got some builders coming in shortly, so I've been planning stuff for that. To me, it's about slow, so I hope this suits you too, and you find it a relaxing place to be. Okay, so this is where we are right now. Everything is stitched down in place. I've got to work out exactly what I'm going to do with the area down here, and I just love how you got what I'm doing here. There was loads of ideas. I'm so grateful to you all for all your lovely, beautiful ideas. I wish we could make them all, honestly. You wrote such lovely things about what you were seeing here and what you would do with it, and I thank you for that lovely insight and input into this piece. It's just lovely. Unfortunately, we can only do one thing, can't we? And we have to just kind of go, okay. And a couple of people said about, well, quite a few people got the cliff and the sea, even though I hadn't, before I even said that, which I think is fantastic because it means something's happening here that's communicating with people. We thought about trees and seed heads, but to me, it became apparent it is the sea. And somebody even said, there's the dark sea and the light sea and this lovely cliff here. And somebody mentioned, guess what? A moon. So I am thinking that we put a moon up here, okay? And I think that then just kind of makes some sense. Let's just pin that on there. And it starts to bring the picture to life, I think. It's maybe not quite the right place, but it starts to bring the picture to life, doesn't it? It starts to give it, I don't know, just something, doesn't it? It just kind of goes, oh yes. And it makes sense of this sort of reflection going on here, this lovely light coming off here. And somebody else said about birds and seagulls, and I have to say that really resonated with me. So I made some dark birds just to see what that would be like, but I also made some little light coloured birds as well. So I've got light birds and dark birds, and I'm just playing around with where you would put them, because it could be that some of them are in the moonlight and some of them are not. I watched some seagulls the other day and they were flying into a sort of a darkish sky, but they were lit up because the winter sun was coming in really low. They were lit up like in a spotlight with the sunshine. It was absolutely fantastic. So you see, you could have, this is not the best fabric to use, but it was just the dark that I had. You could have a mixture of colours of birds going around. It could be that we choose a completely different colour. I might do some sort of moonlit stuff down here, which could be quite nice. If I put some moonlit, just move that bird up there. If we put some moonlight markings, as it were, onto the water, which I think might be quite nice, then maybe you don't want the white birds, maybe you just have all dark birds. These are the questions, and you can't answer the questions, I think, until you start kind of playing around with things and seeing what your eye sees, seeing what you like, seeing what works for you. And it's all about feeling it, isn't it? So I feel as though it mustn't be too busy, it mustn't be too complicated. So it might be that I just use dark birds, but then you can't really see those birds, so maybe I need a different colour. Because I like the idea of the white birds, but I also quite like the idea of some moonlight down here. So I think I need to go and have a little think about it, maybe go and have my lunch, because I always think I think better when I've had a good lunch. I've made some lovely soup today because it's so cold outside. I've just made some beautiful tomato and fennel soup, and I'm going to go down and have that for my lunch. So I'll see you back here after that. So I've had a very delicious lunch, thank you very much, and I feel replenished and ready to go again. And I've come back upstairs. It's interesting, I think, when you have a bit of time away and you come back to it and you think, So I'm looking at these little bits down here. I feel as though those are a bit bitty. They're a bit bitty, and I feel as though what I really want to focus on are these beautiful sort of bird shapes. I just want it to be perhaps about the moon and the background and the birds, and leave it at that. Keep it really, really simple. My motto is always keep it simple. And there's something about it, isn't there? What the piece just speaks to you, and especially if you go away and you come back to it, it has time. It's like kind of mulls over inside you, I think. So the other thing I've come up with is perhaps to add another colour in. Now this looks probably quite blue, quite like a bright blue, but it's actually quite a deep turquoisey blue. I know it always looks funny on the camera monitor thing. So we'll see what colour it looks like when you actually get to see this. And I'm thinking to add into the mix. Okay, so I've got a couple of different possibilities here, and I thought, well, do I take the dark ones out completely? There's lots of possibilities here. I've actually got two pieces of this fabric. I've got this very shiny satin one, and this one which is got a bit more of a slub to it. It's not quite as violently shiny, but I quite like both of those. And I was thinking, well, we could be kind of having some dark ones in the background, and then these other ones where the light is kind of coming and catching them. I don't know. I'm just going to play around with this, and obviously I've only cut two, so you can't really see exactly what might happen if you put, say, you know, that colour up there. And it's all to do with also how the light is going to catch these things, and whether I make these out of a shiny fabric or a matte fabric. I think it's really interesting. So I'm going to sort of just play around with these, as I always do. I play around with things until they say, yes, this is right, this is what you want. And as I say, I feel as though it's just simplifying it, letting the birds be the focus of attention with the sort of, with the moonlight in the background. And I think I'm going to add a bit more of this lacy stuff down here. I need to work out what I'm going to do with the edge down here. How much of I want it to be just loose and free. Maybe just cut it so it's rough. I think that might be good because it'll contrast with this. I find it really interesting, don't you, to see and play and see what's going to come up. I've also got to work out how I'm going to make these birds. So what I've done so far, I'll show you, is I've ironed a bit of like, I don't know, Vilene, some sort of stiffener on the back of here, and that means I can cut them out and they'll be stiff. Now whether I want them to be stiff, I don't know yet. I'm going to play around, and then I've got to think about how I'm going to actually attach them, because I feel as though I want them to be kind of attached but loose, if you know what I mean, so that, say, if you have that there like that, it means that the wings can just be a bit more free and, you know, free to bounce the light around as well. So there's some work to be done, but I'm quite excited about getting it to this stage, and I hope that we're going to work on it and get it finished. It's a bit scary sometimes, isn't it, when you're working with a piece, because there's this pressure on you to think, especially as I'm showing it around the world, I have to say, sometimes it's a bit like, it's very easy to get sucked into the outcome of it rather than just playing. And that's why I keep coming back to playing again and again and again. I know it's my favourite word, because it takes me out of the it's got to have an outcome. It doesn't. I could stop this now and put it in a box and forget about it. It doesn't have to even be finished. But I've got it so far. I feel like I'm in the mood. I'm in the muse. And I am going to play with it a little bit more. I already, you know, it's almost like sometimes your first go at something is often the very best, isn't it? I actually quite like the way these birds are actually quite see-through in a way. There's an element of that. I don't, you know, maybe the mixture of different fabrics will be the way I go. We'll see. So just bear with, keep drinking your cup of tea or whatever you're doing while we're watching, and we'll move this a little bit further on. Okay, so I have just been playing around with some of the birds, and this is kind of the feeling I want to create. I want some white ones as though they are being moonlit, and I want some dark ones that are just sort of not necessarily even, you know, completely birdy, just like movement. I want a sense of movement and shapes as though they're birds. I'm not interested in them looking like specific birds. I think that's not important. But then I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the moon and I'm thinking, I'm not very happy with that. So what I've done is I've made myself a slightly bigger version. It's actually got a piece of white lace on there, so I might change that for a creamy piece. I don't know, I quite like the white. So this is a pace, Sorry, I've got no words today. I've got a piece of cotton curtain interlining here, which is what the backing to this is. And there we go. Let's put that up there. I don't know about you, but I feel as though that brings the whole thing closer to us because it's bigger. It's all about scale. And then you've got this feeling of the birds just kind of milling around. But also, I'm looking at this down here and I'm thinking it needs something down here, doesn't it? And I'm feeling this is sea and cliff and sky, so I don't want plant life. I don't want sort of trees or, you know, things here with birds and moonlight. So I've come up with this, okay? I've kind of scaled up what I had before. And I'm not even sure where these will go exactly, but I've got some like bigger pieces of moonlight, because initially I had little tiny pieces and they just weren't doing it for me. So I've got these bigger pieces of lovely lace, and I'm thinking about how this is more what I want to be doing, I think. Possibly something down here, maybe, or possibly just a really kind of a really big bit there, maybe a little bit there or something. I don't know exactly what. It might, you know, I'll fiddle about with these. It's nothing set in stone, you know. Nothing's ever set in stone. It could be something up there, a bit more up there. No, not entirely. Anyway, you get the gist. So you can see where I'm headed with it. I just have to do a bit more fiddling about. It's as though you want a kind of a triangular feeling, so that you've got like the very closest, widest part down here. So to me, this has been all a little exercise in a way in sort of scale and how it feels. Changing the size of the moon just shifted it completely. And I'll tell you, I came in here last night. I didn't sort of sit down and have a proper session with it. I was just in between jobs last night in the evening, and I just popped in for 5 minutes. And I just started playing around with the birds, and I looked at the moon and I thought, oh. So it was really interesting. I didn't, as I say, come in for a full-on art session. I just came in and fiddled around, and because I just came in and fiddled around and nothing was riding on it, and I just played around with it a bit more, this is what came out, and I'm so much happier with it, I have to say. I hope you may agree that it looks a lot better. And as I say, it's all to do with the scale of things and where things are and what your eye sees. And I suppose that's just composition. If you want to put a proper art term to it, it's your composition. I just call it making a picture and playing around till it feels good. So I'm going to get these stitched down, and I'll be able to show you it when it's finished. Isn't that exciting?
Ba ba da ba da ba da ba ba.